all the input actions are presented using clicks or types. A human uses the mouse and the keyboard for input. To replicate these actions, UiPath supports 3 input methods for performing input actions. The default method captures the input given while interacting with the UI element of the screen. For example, selecting a UI element on the screen with the help of a mouse or a keyboard. Send window messages method performs the similar actions as the default method. As you can see on your screen, it is less compatible with the application being used. This function captures actions performed using keyboard and mouse both. Simulate type click is also similar to default and send window messages. The points which differentiate it from the other two are speed and input source. This action is much faster than the default and send window messages, and it does not capture input given by a keyboard. These methods are similar in nature, however, there are differences in their performance. The slide displays a comparison chart for these input methods. In terms of compatibility, the default method is 100% compatible, given that it does exactly what a human would do. Simulate does a great job for web automation, but has significant limitations when it comes to compatibility with the desktop applications. Both window messages and simulate work in the background, while the default does not. Simulate method correctly identifies the controls used by the target apps, so the speed is significantly higher than the speed of the other two methods. Only default and window messages can send hotkeys. The empty field is a property of UI interacting activities. It is used to erase the data already present in the input area of the UI element. For example, a text box containing previously filled data which is accessed repetitively in the code. When default or send window message method is used, the user has to ensure that the empty field property is checked for erasing the already present data. On the other hand, simulate method empties the field by default. The user must understand the differences between all 3 types of input methods and when to use them. To better understand the differences between the 3 input methods, let's watch this practice video on building a workflow that uses different input methods to input data in a notepad.
Hello, and welcome to the step-by-step demo of input methods. That is default, send window messages, and simulate type or click in UiPath Studio. The first method is the default method. Open the Notepad application on your desktop. Now, go to UiPath Studio, search for the Open Application activity from the Activities panel, and drag it into the Designer panel. And enter an annotation at the top of this workflow. Now, click the Indicate Window on-screen link and indicate the already opened Notepad window. Now, search for a Type Into activity and drag it into the Do container. Click the Indicate Element Inside Window link and indicate the Notepad text editor area. Enter the text, "Automation is changing the world," in the Type Into activity. Drag and drop a click activity below the Type Into activity. And enter a name and annotation for this activity. Click Indicate Element inside Window and indicate the Minimize button of the Notepad window. Now, take another Type Into activity and place it below the Click activity. And enter a name for this activity. Click Indicate Element inside Window and indicate the Notepad text editor area. Enter the text, "Automation makes life easier." Click the plus icon and select Enter. In the Properties panel of the Type Into activity, click on the Selector property and from the Selector Editor window, uncheck the title. This is done so that the process will look for any Notepad window on the screen independent of its title name. We will learn about the Selector Editor in future chapters. Copy the special key string for Enter and move it before the text. Now, take another click activity and drag it below the Type Into activity. Click the Indicate Element inside Window link and click on the Notepad icon in the taskbar to restore it. Now, run the process. In this example of the default input method, we saw that it does not erase pre-existing text and supports special keys, but it does not support writing in the background. Now, select the Send Window Messages property for the Type Into activities from the Properties panel and rerun the process. You can see that the second text gets written in a new line while the notepad was minimized. So this demonstrated that the Send Window Messages input method works in the background, supports special keys, and does not erase pre-existing text. Now, select the Simulate Type property and rerun the process. You can see that the second text gets written after replacing the first text while the notepad was minimized. Also, the text shows the special key for Enter, K-Enter, that we had inserted while we built the code. So we saw that the Simulate Type input method works in the background, but it does not support special keys and it erases the pre-existing text. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Now let's talk about each of the input methods in detail. Each input action lets the user switch between the three methods. The Simulate Window Messages and Send Window Messages can be chosen by checking the corresponding boxes from the Properties panel. If none of the two boxes is checked, the default input method is used. The default method captures human actions performed with a mouse and a keyboard. It has an advantage over the other two methods that it uses the keyboard driver through which it can replicate the touch of every key, including special keys. Also, this method is 100% compatible with all applications. In terms of limitations, it doesn't work in the background. The window must be active and on top of other applications or web pages. Moreover, if an editable field already contains text, it doesn't erase it by default. Instead, it starts writing after it. Also, Since typing each character and moving the mouse across the screen are not the fastest ways to solve a task, this method is the slowest of all the three. The Send Window Message Input method can be activated from the Properties tab by checking the Send Window Message box. This method also captures human actions performed with the help of a mouse or a keyboard. The advantage of this method is that it works in the background. As a result, the mouse doesn't move on the screen, and typing isn't done by keyboard simulation. Instead, the clicks and the typing appear instantly. As the window message supports hotkeys and shortcuts, this method can be used to send special characters in applications. Just like the default method, it doesn't erase the text by default that is already typed in the target UI element. The Simulate Input method can be activated from the Properties tab by checking the Simulate Types Simulate click box. This method captures human actions performed with the help of a mouse. This method uses the technology of the target application for sending instructions. It is the fastest of the three input methods, but only works with applications whose controls react to the commands sent. This method can function in the background. By default, this method erases the existing text in a UI element, but doesn't support hotkeys and special keys. In general, it is used for web automation, where its compatibility is close to 100%, versus in desktop applications, it is near 60%.